Everyone.
Awesome. Okay, it's good to see some people jumping in now. As you jump in, please do let us know in the chat box where you're tuning in from, if you're in New Zealand or overseas. We'd just love to know, yeah, who's in the room. Cool, awesome. Got some more people tuning in. Cool, awesome. Now, great to have everyone here. I'm Lilia Alexander from Territory 3, previously known as Kiwi Landing Pad. We're here today with Anna Guenther.
Almost. It's a hard one.
And Anna was a founder of PledgeMe, which I'm sure everyone in New Zealand at least is aware of. And she is currently head of Women in Export at NZ Trade and Enterprise, which is a lot of what we're keen to chat about today with her role there and how to support women in business. Cool, so I'll just hand over to Anna. I know she's got some awesome slides prepared. So yeah, over to you.
Hi, awesome. Thank you, Lilia. I will start my presentation and I will hopefully do it correctly. Yes. So kia ora, everyone. I would love if you could just pop into the chat and just say why you're here, what interests you in this mahi. No pressure, but always good to know the different perspectives that people are bringing into the room. And yeah, kia ora, no otipotu ho, ko Anna Tokumua, namihi nui kia koto. My name is Anna, and I'm interested in this mahi because I am a woman in business. So I started my first business with some of these fabulous women back at high school in Dunedin, part of the Young Enterprise scheme. I started a lip gloss company made out of vanilla essence and Vaseline, which probably shouldn't be used in the way that it was. But that was where I first started starting businesses, was when I was at high school. But the focus probably really started for me around women in business with my third company, which is PledgeMe, which is still going with another awesome woman at the helm. But when I started PledgeMe, didn't really think that gender was a thing that provided any opportunities or any barriers to me starting and scaling my business. I was a woman who'd been raised on, the sort of 1980s, 1990s strong messaging that women can do anything and, just do it and all of that. And so it wasn't until PledgeMe was starting to get some media coverage that people started asking me, like, what is it like to be a woman in business? And do you want to come and talk at this event about the future of feminism? And at the time I was like, I'm just running a business and I'm not a feminist, but my boyfriend is. Would you like him to come and talk at your conference on the future of feminism? And it was interesting because specifically in that instance, the woman organizing was like, hey, it's cool that you're not a feminist. Do you still want to come and like share your story and tell us why you're not a feminist? Like, why do you think this isn't important? And in preparing for that talk and doing all my research and talking to a bunch of friends in business and not, I started having some hard realizations around some of the opportunities that potentially I'd missed out on when I was starting out in my and also, the sad statistics that we have in New Zealand around rates of domestic violence. Sadly, one of my co-founders from my first business was killed by her ex-partner, and also started realizing that sometimes in the tech and business space, I've been treated differently potentially to my male counterparts, where people thought that I was just the hot date. I like that they thought I was hot, but I was just the hot date at the tech awards, not the founder of a tech company in my own right. And so I started talking about this and writing about sort of feminism and what it meant to me and gender equality, and had Ideologue come to me and ask that I write an article on where I thought New Zealand was going to be in the next 10 years. And they had a bunch of different founders doing the same thing. And once the magazine came out, someone tweeted a picture of the article, tweeted a picture of the cover of the magazine actually, and said, hey, it's really interesting that Anna's focused on the gender imbalance in business in New Zealand, but why is there a gender imbalance on the front cover of this magazine? I think it was around 20% of the people that they interviewed were women. And Ideologue responded, good on them. And they were like, hey, we just didn't know who to interview. So, let us know if there's people we should. And we decided to crowdsource a list. So in about 6 hours, I think we had 350 names on the list. Now it's around 800. And Ideologue actually amazingly came back and said, hey, we're going to institute a new policy around diversity and really try harder to make sure that our magazine represents Aotearoa more widely. So for me, that's really where my thinking started around gender and business. But for New Zealand generally, this focus really started again, potentially, in 2018 around the Trade for All agenda. And Trade for All is something for possibly nerdy economists and trade negotiators, where different countries around the world are starting to think about how we create productive, inclusive, and sustainable economies. And so they're starting to include that in trade negotiations that we do with different countries around the world. And so NZTE has decided to start focusing on this more heavily, both by getting really good data and insights around where we are right now and where we could go, but also with the role that I now have. So bringing in someone to put a focus on specifically gender and export. And so from some of this research that NZTE has been doing, we found that around 15% of our goods exporters in New Zealand are led by women, 1-5. And I don't know about you, but my vision for the future is one where our companies reflect the diverse country that we have. And it's not just gender, but I would love it if we get to a point where 50% of our exporters are women-led. Unfortunately, we're not there yet, as we already saw by the numbers. Like STEM, like technology, there's a leaky pipeline of women in business. Around 52% of our young enterprise scheme students, like myself, are women. Around 50% of our university graduates, we believe, are women as well. It's actually 1985 was the first time that our commerce degrees had equal representation of men and women. But once you go past that, the numbers start to decline. Whether you look at the numbers of tech companies that are being started by women, general business in New Zealand is around 30%, 15% of our exporters, as I already said. And then you look at sort of the NZX listed boards, it's around 16% of those positions are held by women. And I think we've all heard the numbers around investment. In New Zealand, I think it's around 18% of our angel deals go to companies with female founders, but globally only around 2% of our venture capital goes to companies with all women teams. And sadly, they say it's going to take 267 years before we have economic parity between men and women. I don't know about you, that seems like way too long. And so I want to know from the crowd, like, what do you think we need to do to get to the 50% mark? Like, what are the things that would make a difference? How do you think we could both inspire more women and support them in their business journeys and keep them in there beyond high school and university? But also, what can we all do? Like, what is the role of everyone in business to support different types of leaders, which it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be different. So I'm going to talk you through a little bit about some of our ideas, and then I'm going to jump into the chat. Sorry, I'm very bad at multitasking, but I do want you to keep on thinking about ideas as we go. But I want to say, like, people do deeply care. I think the numbers aren't great, and we know we could do better. But as soon as we start talking about it, people come out of the woodwork. So when I posted a LinkedIn post a few months ago when I started this new role, I had over 1,000 likes and comments of people offering active support and 36,000 views. I don't know, but I think that's pretty high for a government department worker.
Really?
And, like, it is happening internationally as well. This focus isn't just in New Zealand. I think we're in an interesting position where we could either leapfrog what's happening internationally, or we could be left behind. Canada has been doing this work for the last 10 years, and they managed to double the number of women-owned companies that they were supporting. And they actually had a significant increase in the outcomes that government measures for the companies that they worked with. And globally, some countries have even put a number on how much they think this could impact their economies if they truly included women at the same rates as men in the economy. And in the UK, they say it could be around a $250 billion increase to their GDP. And I think Canada was around $150 billion as well. So why now? I mean, why not? But also, there's a growing movement, Me Too, Time's Up. There's deep commitments to the Sustainable Development Goals, including number 5, which is gender equality for women and girls. And here in New Zealand, we're starting to measure things like the pay gap, like we never did before, and not just around gender, but ethnicity. And I don't know if anyone here has heard about it, but there is a new focus for the Waitangi Tribunal. They've had a claim brought to them by a group of Māori women under the Manawahine Kaupapa inquiry, which basically says that not only did Māori generally lose position, power, and money due to the settlement, but also women were more adversely affected. So what have we done? We set a purpose, which is to inspire and support more women in their global journeys, addressing both barriers and leveraging opportunities at an individual and systemic level. We've decided that there's two areas we want to focus on. One is diverse groups of women-led companies that are or could export, but also secondarily, anyone who supports women business leaders. And we broke it out into three pillars of work. One is the stats and stories, making sure we have really good data and really good insights to inform what we do. The second pillar is experiences, so figuring out actually what can we do to either create safe spaces for women or make space for women. And finally, looking at how we can build partnerships with the likes of Territory 3, but also bridges internally within NZTE to make sure this work actually happens and it's not just left to one person. There's some systemic issues that we found in our research, ranging from insights that women may lack networks. They may not have as deep networks or networks with exporting experience, power, money. We've heard that funding is harder to raise, and actually by hearing that funding is harder to raise, women actually opt out of going through the raise process. We've heard things around, cultural expectations potentially providing or being a barrier to women evaluating export because of the lack of time, or we haven't seen role models of what it could look like. And then we believe those lead to some symptoms around lack of confidence and also a lack of time. So what are we doing? We're looking at this experience pillar and trying to figure out what we as NZTE to help with Tūhono can lead, but also where we can support. And underpinning that, it's the idea of creating safe spaces for women to get together and learn with each other, sometimes explicitly promoted as women in, but sometimes not. Sometimes it's just, badass founders doing cool things. And also creating space and making space for women. Trying to get into areas where potentially women aren't represented as well as they could be, and just showcasing amazing stories. So what that specifically means is we're doing things like a Women in Export Leadership Series. So once a month online, or once every other month online, and then in between months in person, women can come together and learn from each other, hearing one sort of authentic story of how someone did it, and then networking and discussing. And I can share the link to that in the chat afterwards if anyone is interested. We're also supporting Electrify Aotearoa, which I believe Territory 3 is as well, which is a women's founders event for ambitious companies that's being hosted here in May. We're doing a few events around that to specifically talk about export and help women network as well on the day. And we're exploring things like, how do we create content for everyone? Or just share content for everyone, like Project Include, which is a manual effectively for companies to think around how they hire and retain diverse staff members, specifically in the tech space. And I'd love to know if anyone here has any tips or resources, things that you really love reading or going to when you're thinking about this work, because I'm really conscious that there are so many different things out there that we could be sharing. But we're also thinking around how we can educate groups on exporting in a slightly different manner. Historically, it's been workshops in pretty boring government offices, talking through how to think about export. And last year we tested out going on a marae and doing a wananga with a group of Māori women. We're also exploring doing a session with a group of Pacifica women. If you have any networks that you think we should be tapping in to do something like that, we really love it. And it doesn't need to be focused purely on women, but we definitely want it to be something that makes sure that women are included as well. And we're thinking about cohorts. So how do we actually bring small groups of like-minded companies together who are exploring a market or in a specific sector to learn together around how they want to grow internationally, sharing ideas and resources, bringing in experts when it makes sense as well to help in that journey. And yeah, so that's really this is what I've been doing for the last 3 months. I'm super excited. I have way too many slides, and I want to know from the group, what questions do you have? What do you think we should be doing? How can you help? That's way too many questions all in a row. Lilia.
Yeah, I saw a comment come through in the chat from Julian from CFO for You, mentioning that they dedicate 15% of their profit to invest in female entrepreneurs, which is pretty awesome. I think that's great to see.
That's amazing. Julian, I'd love to know, like, what made you decide to do that? What was the reason that you started that focus? It's super inspiring.
I've just noticed we've had a few more new people jump in. So just if you have joined since we started, do let us know in the chat where you're tuning in from. And also, yeah, what you reckon Anna, NZTE, and all of us as well can do to help women in export, women in business. We're really keen to have this be a bit of an interactive webinar. To kind
Did they know they were signing up for interactive?
Oh, I think I mentioned it in the description of the promotions.
Love it. Oh, and I see a few friends in there. Will, you need to ask a question. Haley, you too. Rachel, I know you. I know you've got questions inside of you. Amber, great to see you. Yeah, we would really love to know what you're thinking. Anyone. Do you have any questions, Lilia?
Oh, I think we've just. Oh, wait, is this a question?
The introduction from Nicola.
Oh, okay. No, awesome. Nicola, great to have you in the chat. Oh, a question from Grant. Is there much going on with youth at the moment? I mean, like you, one of your slides you mentioned, was it 52% in young enterprise scheme were females? Was that what?
Yeah. So young people are nailing it. And I think we don't have historic data to show trends, but definitely seeing that with Young Enterprise Scheme, 52% identify as women, but also I recently emceed the startup showcase for the University of Canterbury, and 50% of the companies that pitched on stage were led by women, and actually 60% of the companies that won. So, and that wasn't the only diversity on showcase. There was great representation across the board.
Yeah, I'd say, like, as someone who is kind of recently out of that, I mean, I'm 24, so I guess I'm still young.
You're still young. You're definitely still young.
Like I did the Young Enterprise Scheme in school, and that was amazing, incredible. And that is available all around the country. I mean, I have heard of some schools where they can't get it simply because, like, their business studies teacher doesn't want to, or they don't have it. It's like an economics teacher that doesn't want to, and just annoyances like that. But mainly it is all out there, and it is quite inclusive. And I guess, like, something I've noticed as well is maybe it's just this generation, and increasingly for young people, is we don't experience or feel too much of a difference between male or female in terms of wanting to achieve and wanting to do things. So, you know, as the generations move on, this hopefully, you know, it becomes less of a problem, because we're brought up with that, oh, we can do anything kind of thing. And it's only once you hit the real world that things can be a little bit different, and you realize there are differences. I know something that does need some work maybe is in terms of financials, investing. I know there's that really awesome Girls Who Invest podcasts run by two girls down south, which is making waves, doing really amazing things. So things like that are really great to see, which would be great if it were to integrate more in high school youth kind of.
Yeah, and there's organizations like Banker doing really cool things as well to bring that sort of base financial literacy in primary and high school, also run by an amazing woman. So, you know, win-win. But yeah, it's definitely an area to explore. I'd be really keen, people that are listening, like, do you have any thoughts, like when you started your companies or started thinking about exporting, both men and women, like what were some of the things that you needed support with, or what were some of the areas that you would have loved to get ideas and insights on? Cool. So a comment in around the representation from Grant, representation of women at events like Kiss My Sass that NZTE hosts. Yeah, I think, so why do we think the attendance is so low? I have actually looked at the attendance at events across NZTE generally, and found that around 50% of the attendees are women. So women are attending events at a relatively high rate, considering potentially they're underrepresented in our export companies. But definitely in the tech space, and we've heard this feedback before around Kiss My Sass, there's a low representation of women. And Grant, I'd love to know what you think. Like, what do you think might need to be done differently to connect or inspire women to attend? I mean, we know that there are less women in the tech space, but there's so many amazing women in the tech space that we could be bringing along. Hey, Amber, lovely to see you. Yeah,
I think with NZ Trade and Enterprise for a couple of months, right? So,
yeah, I've been in this role for a few months. But one thing I do think about is with invitations to events, it's making it really clear why someone would want to attend and what they might get out of it, especially if we think they might have less time or less funding. They might be a little bit more stressed, like being really clear on the invite and be targeted in the invite as well, getting people to individually invite people along, which is something we can all do. If we get a lot of benefit out of the event, how do we bring more women into that space if we see that they're not represented? Yeah, so I think thinking about how we invite people is really important and what the benefit is for them attending. And having women hosting. Yes, totally agree, Grant. I've started like sneaking in amazing women in to be hosts. Last time I had one or two that I recommended who were hosting, including Vanessa Radich, if you don't know her, amazing, great brain, HR, Paula, yeah, and support around investment process and how to pitch confidently. One of the things that NZTE has done in the past, and there was actually an article about it yesterday, is an event called Invest Her. And so that's where we support 6 women-led companies to pitch to a group of investors that we know are interested in investing in women-led companies. And I think of the 6 companies that pitched last year, 5 of them raised investment afterwards, and 1 is now raising. They weren't at the time, or they just raised. So, you know, like there is some stuff happening, but I think it'd be really interesting to hear what people think we could do differently around supporting women around investment. Because I think the thing that concerns me is hearing anecdotes like, I decided not to raise because I heard it was hard. So how do we have mana enhancing conversations around why investing in women-led companies is awesome, and stop some of the questions that are a bit dumb that women sometimes get around, you know, what does your husband think of this? Or I had someone else tell me that they found they were often asked questions around like problems in the past, not ambition in the future.
Yeah.
So how do we change that?
I know Electrify Aotearoa has just announced an accelerator as well, which is a pretty awesome new initiative. So I think they've only just started taking in applications for that, but that would be at least a great way to have more, you know, female founders getting that help throughout a specific tailored accelerator, and maybe some more opportunities for investment at the ends as well. So that's something that we're jumping on as a channel partner as well at Territory 3 to help get the word out about that. So if anyone is in that space looking to join an accelerator, do give that a Google, Electrify Aotearoa Accelerator. It's quite a new thing that has just popped up to kind of align with the conference, which should be coming up in a couple of months.
Come to the conference, everyone. It looks amazing. The speakers are so inspiring. I'm especially excited to hear Ali from Canny speak around their journey growing their tech company to 50 million users. Like, it's just insane. And that was a journey out of a university startup program itself. You know, they started at the University of Auckland maybe 5-6 years ago, and now they have 50 million users. So much to learn.
Yeah, definitely looking forward to that conference. I know I've got quite a few comments coming through that, so it's hard to like read them, but also
yeah, I totally feel you. I'm really interested. I know that Territory 3 has had a bit of a focus on women in the past, and hearing Lilia, how you've been addressing this, how you've been working to inspire and support more women.
Yes, totally. So as you guys may know, we do these webinars almost weekly, pretty much weekly, skip a few here and there. And so I've been tracking in terms of what guests we have on female versus male. I think last year we did pretty well. It was pretty close to 50-50. I don't have the numbers on me right now, but something specifically that I wanted to focus on this year was that for the first month of webinars, we just had exclusively female guests. So that's what we've done for the past month. And I think we might be changing it up in a week or two. But just trying to, and it's interesting because, you know, as soon as I sort of set that in my mind, I realized there are so many cool female founders out there, and it's not even hard to find them now. So I mean, historically that might have been an issue, but these days I think it's just a case of just going out searching, and you'll honestly be surprised how many there really are. It's like I could do the whole year, like just female founders, female industry experts, and so yeah, I'm pretty stoked to have discovered that you know it's actually really easy. And I always myself like, oh no, we've got to find some males now for the next few. But yeah, that's just something we wanted to put some effort into. Like we were kind of trying to align it with Electrify Aotearoa, but you know that's been postponed. But at least it lines up with International Women's Day, which was yesterday. Which I saw so many posts. I swear I've never seen a day like have so many posts on social media. It was crazy. But,
it's a thing. International Women's Day, I both love it and hate it. Like I love that it exists and we're celebrating women and showcasing them, but I hate that it's still a thing that we have to have, right? Like it's just like, why aren't we there yet?
Exactly. Yeah. But nevertheless, you know, good to see everyone supporting women online, and lots of cool posts like showcasing the work that different women are doing at the moment. So it was all really impressive to see.
Totally. And I think to your point, you know, while the percentages aren't great around women in business, there are so many stories and so many amazing women doing cool things that can be showcased to inspire everyone, you know. There's so many things we can learn from this story. So it's one area that we're deeply exploring is how do we just get some stories out there around how companies started to export and showcase some women, like this is how different people did it and this is what they learned along the way, what worked, what didn't, and if there are gendered barriers, how did they overcome them to show that it's possible, but also what are the opportunities, like where, you know, which countries in the world have decided that they're going to procure X amount of whatever from women, or you know what are the things that maybe women potentially bring that could be really, really useful for launching into a new market. And you know, I don't want to gender it too much, but like, you know, what are the things that we can leverage as well as things that we might need to address both as individuals, but then systemically, like what as a government can we do as well. There's a comment that, is there any support for women after having children and coming back to the workforce and running their own business, helping them in coaching how to balance family and business, or around boosting their self-confidence, etc. It's a really good question, and one that I just found out, like, you know, there is, you see in New Zealand around a certain number of hours that you can get in childcare. I don't have any children, so I'm sorry, I'm not super across the details, but you can't actually claim childcare as a business expense, even if it is a business expense, even if you are attending a work event at night and need to get childcare in. Unfortunately, under our current tax structure and legislation, it's not allowed to be seen as a business expense. And so if there's anyone on this call who knows someone that we can have a conversation with about that, I would really love to. I have been told that because we've attempted to keep our tax system relatively simple, there's concerns around adding things like that in. But yeah, it definitely is something that there could be more support around. But there's a really good podcast focused on women in business called The Female Career here in New Zealand, and it talks to different women-led companies about their careers, and not just companies. It's actually more wide-ranging than that. And they do ask one question at the end around gender and how people have overcome different things. And some of the comments have been around their confidence in childcare and all of that.
I just saw a note from Gloria in the Q&A. Just jumping back up there.
There's Q&A.
Yeah, it's interesting because we've got a chat section, but then also the Q&A section. So I just saw the note there. Sorry guys, it's quite hard to like read it, to read and talk at the same time. Gloria, okay, so going back to, she was thinking on the question, what do we think we should do to get to the 50% mark? One answer for this is perhaps to make space for not only women for people in diverse backgrounds to make it in business. I think the transformation for increasing participation of women in business should start at the structural level. Cool. So in terms of, so do you mean,
so just focusing on diversity more generally, totally agree. Gloria, 100% behind it. I read a really interesting quote yesterday as part of International Women's Day from Gloria Steinem, basically saying that sexism and racism are intertwined. And if we want to remove either, we have to untwist all of it. And so I think that, you know, a lot of the issues that potentially women and people from minority backgrounds face are intertwined, and we need to focus on all of it. I think the focus specifically in my role on women is supposed to be more diverse representation of women, so women from different backgrounds, but keeping that focus on gender as the conversation that I'm having, while we have others focused on other areas as well. But yeah, totally agree. It's interrelated. We need to make it easier and more supportive for everyone, because we can. Like, I think the thing is, if we support different founders into business and growing their companies, it's not like there's no scarcity around this. Like, you know, we can grow the pie bigger for everyone and learn from each other, and, you know, build a cool and great ecosystem here in Aotearoa, New Zealand, that we can showcase to the world. Like, how cool would it be if we like solved this and we were like, hey world, look at what we did over here. Like, this is just like New Zealand with, you know, a diverse range of founders who have equitable outcomes, who are just building great businesses. And, you know, maybe that's something we could export. What do you think, Lilia? Should we start exporting out of, I'm not saying it's easy though, but
a lot of work's going to it for sure. I just saw a note here from Rosie from ourcloset.co.nz. Great to have you here, Rosie. And her business is started from renting out her own clothing and has grown into a platform to empower women and young girls to be financially independent and have recurring revenue through renting items, or renting out items that they already own. So that's, I love that, really. I need to jump back on your platform at some point soon, actually, and check that out. That's really cool. It's like a business that also helps other women through the business. You know, it's pretty awesome. So I really love that. Scrolling down.
It's also good to share the barriers you face as women. I've been married a long time, and my wife still surprises me with the sharing challenges she's faced that I've never thought of. And Grant, it's so true. I think with these deep interviews that we did with founders on their export journeys, you know, some of the things that they said were heartbreaking around the experiences they had, the things that have been said to them. You know, I naively thought we were beyond some of it. But, you know, and hearing the sort of viewpoint that, you know, government agencies are potentially old boys networks, and things like that really hit me, because I was like, oh, we need to be showing it differently from who we are. And I saw someone comment earlier that it's really great that NZTE now has a chair that's a woman. I totally agree. It's awesome to see the diversity in our sort of board level. I think the thing I'd love to see next, and I probably shouldn't be saying this where it's being recorded, is how do we see that in politics as well? How do we see the people that are leading these portfolios show a bit more diversity as well? I don't think we've ever had a woman leading our economic or business portfolios before.
Yeah, interesting on that one. A question from Nicola. How do you feel about implementing quotas that are closer to representing actual demographics?
The quota question. It's always a good one, which creates much debate. I personally am pro quota, because I think it pushes conversations and pushes us to think a bit more creatively around who we might look to bring into some of the roles. And it's not saying that they're not there on their own merit, but we might be looking beyond the normal networks that we look to for certain roles. And I think some of the research that's come out of some of the Scandinavian countries has shown that quotas have worked, and that there is a benefit in having more women on boards. I do understand, though, why people might be against quotas, and I can understand why specifically women who get into roles based off a quota might feel like they're being put in for reasons that they might not appreciate. But I also think that potentially women are missing out on roles right now for reasons that they don't appreciate and they don't even see because of the way we're judging and finding and inviting people into spaces.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, interesting on that one. I know, yeah, similar thoughts around you don't want to feel like you're put in a position just because you're female, because that can come across a bit badly. But yeah, I can see benefits of both sides.
I'm a little bit addicted to Twitter. I don't tweet much, but I definitely read a lot. And I saw this tweet that went a bit viral the other day, which was basically this woman being like, I don't want to be asked ever again around how it feels to be a woman in business. I just want people to ask me about my business. Like, I want to be interviewed around the badass business that I've created. And all these people started tweeting around it. And and that's why days like International Women's Day, I love it, but I hate it because I'm like, we do need to know the barriers, and we do need to figure out how we're going to get through them, but we also just need to be showcasing amazing people doing amazing things and it to represent the country that we're in, right?
Yeah, there was a viral post like that on LinkedIn recently as well. It's like, I'm not a girl boss, I'm a boss. The kind of thing. And yeah, I can definitely resonate with that. But yeah, it's an interesting mix, sometimes it can help support women in general, and but there does reach a point where people do just want to be seen as they are, and not have that label constantly put on them, which is a really tricky one, because you kind of want to use the label to support women and everything, but you don't want to make people feel that way.
Totally agree. And I think so there's different times for different approaches, right? And sometimes there's an approach which is just, let's focus on women and make it explicit and do that. And then there's some approaches where actually just everywhere else we should make sure we are representing.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, if the representation was total 50-50, we wouldn't need to use the buzzwords and everything. So maybe that's the goal of backgrounds.
I love Grant's comment that 73% of their partner network, reseller network, is women-owned businesses. Grant, what do you do? How do we learn from that? How have you got, what's going on? Tell us more.
I saw a question in the Q&A from Rebecca. Do women-run businesses tend to fall into different range of structures, like size, sector, business model, etc.?
Yeah, I mean, so the research that we've seen as part of the work that MFAT is doing and others is there are definitely some sectors that women tend to more often, like food and beverage and consumer goods, more B2C than potentially B2B, though there are some really great B2B companies as well. And women-led companies tend to be smaller in revenue, but that might also be tied to the fact that they're not raising investment. So, or it's harder to raise investment. So how do you scale it if you don't have the rocket fuel to do that? And it was interesting, some of the research showed that if there were more women in leadership positions, they hired more women in leadership positions. So if there was a woman at the top, there were more women in the senior leadership team compared to male-led companies. And structurally, we are seeing that a lot of companies that are women-founded or co-founded. So I haven't played this hypothesis out to the end yet, though, so it's still a hypothesis, but it looks like there might be more co-founding than we might see in other companies.
Interesting. Grant just mentioned his businesses, rocketspark.com. Our partners are design businesses who use their website builder to create websites for their clients. Okay, cool. So you're saying 73% of the reseller network are woman-owned business. Oh, that's interesting. So that's people who are then continuing to make websites for people.
Designers. That's pretty cool.
Wow.
Awesome. Hey, I'm conscious if there's no more questions. Maybe we give people a little bit of time back to go and have their lunches, Lilia, unless there's anything else that you want to jump in on.
I mean, I think we've had a really good chat, some cool insight. Um, um, in terms of, I guess we could go back to in terms of with you and PledgeMe, with raising investment there. Like, did you find challenges yourself with that then, and how did that process go?
Yeah, I think I was really lucky in that the first few rounds that I did were through people that I knew. So the early investors were existing networks. And then from there, we went out and crowdfunded. And we had some amazing people invest in the company through our crowd. And it was a really great experience, actually, seeing the level of support and the breadth of support around New Zealand for what we were doing at the time and now. But yeah, when we did go and pitch at more traditional pitch events, we never really did, but I think I did once or twice, and we never really had great conversations in those settings around what we were doing, where we're going. So I think we were a bit out of the normal sort of focus. Yeah.
But you'd say relatively, you had quite a smooth experience otherwise.
Yeah, personally, I had a really smooth experience, and I think probably because the first time that we had anyone invest in the company that was outside the co-founding group, it was people that we knew really well, and yeah, so really lucky, good networks, good people. Yeah.
Okay. I mean that's great to hear.
Yeah.
Been quite smoothly. Yeah, because I'm actually I might look into this space a bit more of this idea that maybe raising investment is harder for women. So I'll have a
we do see that actually crowdfunding, equity crowdfunding internationally is seen as easier for women than traditional forms of raising investment, potentially because women are better at building those sort of communities and relationships around what they do, even though they might not be networks with lots of power and money. They've got networks that are interested in what they're doing. And there's some research that shows that women are more likely to share their problems and ask for help and discuss things compared to sort of male founders. And so I wonder if that sort of ties into it as well, that I think on PledgeMe, around 50% of the equity campaigns are led by women. So that's a stark difference to sort of 18% and 2%. But it's a different type of raising process potentially. And Rebecca, Gloria, totally agree. What's normal needs to change. We need new normal people. We need something new normal as well. But
oh yeah, we've got a lot of new normals going on at the moment.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome. Cool. Okay. Yeah. Conscious. I know I saw someone had to jump off there. Yeah. No, I think we've had a really awesome chat. And definitely a lot. I'm keen to keep looking into in terms of the whole raising investment kind of side of things. But thanks everyone for tuning in. We have recorded this, so we'll be uploading it shortly. And if you are keen to look at our other female founder webinars, do check out www.territory3.community/academy. And we upload every webinar on there within a few hours of completing them. But yeah, otherwise, thank you so much to Anna for jumping on and chatting with us all about how to support women in business. We hope you got some insight out of this. And yeah, hopefully some more conversations to come soon.
I should have said, like, one of the easiest ways to support women in business is to buy their product or buy their services, or go out and offer them support in different ways. It's going to take all of us to do this mahi. And if it's okay, I'll send through a few links through you as well, Lilia, of ways people can support and engage into the future.
Cool. Awesome. Okay. Otherwise, hope everyone has a great lunch, great rest of your day, week, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Awesome. Thanks, Lilia. Thanks everyone for taking time out of your day to come and listen and chat. So